So 20 people. Okay, now everyone's coming. All right, so welcome everyone. Today I put together this talk, Polkadot 101, which is going to give you an overview of Polkadot, and most importantly, the current events that are happening, and like a introduction to parachains as well. All right, so let's move to the next. Okay, so I'm a technical educator at Web3 Foundation. My experience includes like being a teaching professor at University of Vermont. I have a PhD in computer science, and I've joined Web3 Foundation very recently. All right, so in this slide, I'm going to put out few bold claims saying that Polkadot is a foundational building block of the new web. So the web we know right now, it's called like Web 2.0, and we are coming from like Web3 Foundation. We want to lay out a foundational block for this new kind of web. And what does it do? It enables like people, enterprises, and governments to use and secure applications that don't rely on trusting a third party. Right, so you are wanting to give this power to people where you don't have to rely on a central authority to do your business or work. So that's the motto of Web3. We need to have like less trust and more truth enabled somehow. So I'm gonna show you how we put out design solutions to achieve this objective. So the two organizations behind Polkadot are Web3 Foundation and Parity Technologies. So Web3 is based in Zug, Switzerland. We're about like 50 employees. Parity mainly is the developer of this ecosystem. So Parity has about like 150 employees who are mainly developers, and Web3 has mainly like research scientists who guide how things should be done. So let me give you a brief, overview of how the Polkadot architecture looks like. You would have heard of these terms like layer 0, layer 1, if you're following like blockchain space. So Polkadot is a layer 0 architecture, meaning so it's the underlying connector of layer 1 blockchains. Okay, so I'm going to show you what layer 1 blockchains are in a bit, but yeah, so. Think of Polkadot as a chain which relays information across like these different blockchains, and also it provides like economic security for those layer 1 blockchains. So parachains and parathreads. So in this architecture, you can see that there are individual blockchains that are sitting out there. So those are like parachains or parathreads. So they share security from Polkadot, as well as they have this relay chain that lets those blockchains communicate with each other. So this is a developers meetup, right? So I know most of you are developers, and the technology, the technology that powers Polkadot is Substrate. So Substrate is built on Rust. So Rust is a programming language. So Substrate is a framework. So basically, Substrate gives you a plug and play kind of architecture where you have a lot of libraries already set up. So you can pick the modules that you want and start building blockchain right off the bat. So Substrate is a flexible framework for building blockchains. It's modular, so there are several modules that are available for you. It uses WebAssembly for runtime. It's built on open source, like Rust code. So we're going to talk about Frame in a bit, but it's the libraries and modules that are going to simplify your runtime development. Meaning, in this architecture, like if you're wanting to be a parachain or parathread, all you need to focus on is what you're provided with in Frame. Okay. It consists of logic encapsulated modules. They're called as palettes. You can mix and match with them and build a blockchain. All right, so let's talk about Polkadot network launch. Okay, so we're fairly a new project. As you can see, May 2020 was when the first block of this blockchain was generated. The work actually started in 2017, but yeah, so this was when Polkadot network was actually, launched. And initially, it's proof of authority, meaning it was Web3 and Parity and a bunch of people who are deciding what should happen on the network. In June last year, we moved to nominated proof of stake. I have a separate slide that explains what it is. And then in July, we removed pseudo, meaning we handed the network to people who have dots, which are the network utility tokens. And finally, in August 2020, exactly a year ago, we enabled balance transfer. And till today, that's been the case. So I'm going to show you a snapshot of the Polkadot blockchain in the next slide. But yeah, so what happened there? So from last August till now, the network pretty much looks like this. So we produced about 6 million blocks. The average block duration is like 6 seconds, and there are like 1.1 billion dot out there. And if you look at the events that are happening in the on the Polkadot blockchain, pretty much everything is like either connected to staking, balance transfer, or other network events, right? So here you see the block hashes and the validators who are like validating those blocks, right? So some of them have identities and some of them don't. So this is basically a snapshot of Polkadot blockchain, which was taken today. And as we go further and further, I'm gonna talk about like other things Polkadot offers. But yeah, so one of the main things is, your blockchain has a bunch of validators. For Polkadot, the number is around 297. So there are 297 nodes that are going to decide what block gets added to the chain. Okay, and there are 651 nodes that are waiting to get onto the active validating set. So Polkadot is inflationary, meaning the number of dots are not fixed, so they're going to be increased based on an equation that takes into account like how many dots are staked and how many are in circulation. So here is a snapshot of all the validator nodes that are connected to the chain. As you can see, we are pretty decentralized already. So we have our presence like in different geographic locations. You could say like these are basically the IP addresses of where we are running the node. But yeah, so they're pretty distributed. You can see a big cluster in and around like Switzerland right there. All right, so now, like I mentioned, for the past 1 year, Polkadot has just been running, basic functions. So there are no parachains that are live yet. So the chains that I talked about earlier in the architecture, for which the cross communication will be facilitated by Polkadot. So that is not live yet. But then you will have this question, right? So where is all the action? So the action is on a blockchain called as Kusama. So Polkadot is like the mainstream, blockchain that everybody knows of. And I'm pretty sure everybody who knows Polkadot will also get to know about Kusama eventually, right? So Kusama is Polkadot's canary network. So as you can see, the logo of Kusama is like a bird. In a way, it's like a canary bird that people have used earlier to test out like coal mines, whether they're safe or not for humans to enter. So it draws its inspiration from that concept. So basically, we have this blockchain that is going to be a cousin of Polkadot, meaning it's going to be very similar, but it has a different objective. It's out there to test out the broader applications that are going to be deployed on Polkadot. And I'll show you these functionalities in a bit. So you can see that there are plenty of parachains that are already like up and running on Polkadot, on Kusama. And here is the list of all of them as of today. So I'm going to clarify this in a bit. Like there are 6 parachains that are running, and the others are just plugged into the relay chain for crowd loans. All right. So Kusama today, so you can see that it's going to share a lot of properties with Polkadot relay chain. The block production speed is again like 6 seconds. There are about 9 million blocks in Kusama blockchain. And you can see the circulation of the tokens. It's smaller than Polkadot, and there's a reason for it. This is a test canary network. There are about 11.4 million Kusama tokens that are out there. And I want you to focus on the events set here. So earlier in Polkadot, pretty much you saw balance transfers, but here you have balance transfers along with like the parachain, based events as well. Okay. And yeah, so subtle differences between Polkadot and Kusama. You can see that there are 900 validators instead of 297 that you have on Polkadot. And even the number of nominators, it's different. So nominators are lesser in Kusama. So brief comparison between both of them. Right. So one main thing you have to understand is that we don't control Polkadot or Kusama, right? So both are independent chains. Both of them have their own governance, their own councils, and both of them have different objectives. So Kusama is like the wild and fast cousin of Polkadot, meaning it's out there to let people deploy their applications fast, like to innovate in a faster way. And once you show that your blockchain works properly on Kusama, you can port it to Polkadot if you want like a more stable environment. So yeah, so the comparison is listed out on the slide. So you can see that Polkadot is going to offer a very high stability, high security. Even the governance is a bit more conservative, meaning for anything to change on Polkadot, it takes about like 28 days, corresponding to the unbonding period of the dots, whereas in Kusama, it's about like 7 days. So things move a little faster on Kusama, and they're meant to move fast on Kusama. So if you are a developer who's trying to enter Polkadot ecosystem, initially you have an idea, you'd like to test it out in a real world scenario with economic consequences, then Kusama is the place where you would go, deploy your application, and then check how things work out. Yeah, so Polkadot is for enterprise level applications, right? So there's a lot more money involved, And as you can see, validators on Polkadot earn higher rewards than Kusama. So enough of this comparison. I hope you got an idea of what the ecosystem is made of. But again, so these are not just the two blockchains that we have more. As a developer, when you enter the ecosystem, you're presented with these two test nets. So West End, which is like a testnet for Polkadot, it's like a direct mirror of Polkadot's code. It's going to let you like build your applications as if you're building it on Polkadot. Okay, so you can do that. And then Rococo is again is a little different, meaning so this will host like functionalities that are yet to be tested. Okay, so all the futuristic features of Polkadot, like cross-chain, communication and others, they are going to be tested on this one. As you can see, so West End is has only one Genesis block. It keeps increasing with all the testing that happens on it. But as Rococo, it can reset at times. When you're adding like a really brand new feature, you might want to like reset the blockchain to the beginning. But yeah, so as a developer entering Polkadot ecosystem, these are the ones that you'll be working with. So you could also like deploy validator nodes, test out like how things work in here. Okay, so with that overview, I'm gonna talk about like the overall Polkadot design and the features that it promises. Okay, so all of these that you're gonna see, the promise is that once the network is launched fully, you're gonna see all of these functionalities.
Recording in progress.
So the first one is connecting the networks together. Okay, so let's talk about the layer 1 blockchains now. So we have Bitcoin, which is really good at what it does. It's a distributed ledger, and it keeps track of all the transactions that happen, and it does that in its own way. So a custom blockchain built on top of Polkadot could also do that. Okay, so it can have its own like application, and it's similar to what Bitcoin does, and it only does that. And also you can have blockchains that let do more stuff, like Ethereum. So I'm sure many of you are familiar with Ethereum, or even are developing stuff on Ethereum. So what you can do is you can build a lot of applications on top of that particular blockchain. So Ethereum is a layer 1 blockchain. Anything you build on top of it is layer 2. Now we're talking about Polkadot, which is like layer 0. So what it's gonna do is it's gonna so the tiny dot that you see in that logo that we have, so that's a single blockchain. So the idea is to have all these layer 1 blockchains, doing their work, and they can have like different use cases, managing identity, DeFi, and everything that I listed down there. Yeah. So a second. And also in the future, we would like to enable bridges to these other independent blockchains that are out there. Okay, so they're not part of the ecosystem. They're outside of the Polkadot ecosystem. And if we would like to connect with them and talk to them, we need what's called as a bridge. So we want to have this functionality as well. And the interesting thing is you can have a bridge between Polkadot and Kusama as well. So right now, both of those are independent relay chains. So we want to integrate both of them for seamless communication. And this opens up a good opportunity to scale Polkadot ecosystem. The way to contact like other relay chains. That way we will be able to run even more blockchains which are connected to each other. Okay, so connecting networks together. So that's what we're trying to do. And I'll tell you at the end of the presentation, Kusama is already ahead of that. Like we're we're able to connect networks together. All right, so enable custom-made platforms built for specific apps. So just the way, think of being a DJ or a music producer, you want to like equalize things for a specific genre, right? So you need to adjust few parameters to make sure a certain music sounds certain way. So Substrate is gonna let you do that. So you can think of it as a Lego kit. So you have Substrate, which is like the framework that's going to let you build blockchains. Then you have these palettes that you can plug and play. You're allowed to like even modify the code inside them and build a blockchain of your choice. So such kind of customizability, which is like already existing in the ecosystem, and it's going to allow you to rapidly build new projects if you'd like to. So here is an example. So Substrate frame palettes. I talked about this earlier. Substrate frame palettes include, so you have block finalization gadgets, which are again plug and play. Balances, you can mint tokens on your blockchain and let the balances palette handle like transactions. So all of these are going to come handy for you if you're trying to build your blockchain using Substrate, which can eventually be plugged into Polkadot ecosystem. So I'm not sure if these slides are going to be shared, but yeah, so if they're shared, you can click on the link that I have below. That's a Substrate node template. What's interesting about this is you compile it and you have like a blockchain node running on your computer. Okay, so you can view all the source code. You can modify it the way you want. You'll be able to like start with your blockchain, your own blockchain, just by compiling and running that particular code. And it comes with these runtime palettes or libraries sitting on like WebAssembly, like WASM, and yeah. So check it out. Like after the presentation, you can explore that more. All right, so handling heavy traffic at scale. So this is like a very hot topic in the blockchain space, especially with Ethereum, considering the gas prices, congestion in the network, and other issues that are there with it. We're just going to show you with this parallel architecture where all the blockchains are running in parallel. They are going to submit the metadata to the relay chains, enabling so many transactions per second capacity. So think of all these blockchains running in parallel, and they're submitting like the metadata to the relay chain, which is going to be finalized, allowing the whole network to have a transaction speed of that capacity. So yeah, so in comparison, like I mentioned, Bitcoin does what it does very well. So it has like 7 transactions per second capacity with a block production, which is around like 10 minutes. All right. Yeah, so I want to focus more on the governance part. I think this is where a lot of novel, methods were introduced by Polkadot. Yeah, so in general, blockchains can have no governance. Okay, so nobody changes anything about the blockchain. So they're just going to have that code, and then you just run it. Or there could be like one person, like a benevolent dictator, who's going to decide the future of that blockchain, or it could be like an organization that does that. So Polkadot uses the third one, where it's the community that proposes and votes for the decisions that are going to change the blockchain, including the network parameters, source code, and everything to do with the network. And I already showed you like how decentralized we are right now, and yeah, so it's the community that's going to do all of these. So this is very close to how things work in Switzerland, right? So you have these referendums that are put out there, and people are gonna vote for them. And if you observe, the content in the governance page on our wiki, you'll see that the voting is also weight based. Like if you have a lot more conviction for not letting a proposal go through, you can also add more weight using your token. So there are many features out there that will enable governance on the chain. So we also have a council. There are designated duties for the council. The council members can be voted for using your utility tokens as well. Okay, so this is the snapshot for governance on the chain. So we have what we call democracy. So democracy is going to have all the referendums. Once the referendum passes through that, it can also include like code that can be automatically deployed to the network. So there's the council, there's the treasury, like so treasury is where like all the dots. So every block reward has a bit of dots that are generated, right? So part of that goes to treasury, and again, it's the democracy that defines where those funds go to. Okay, so right now it's the Parity Technologies that's developing code for Polkadot. So as things go decentralized, there could be others who would be willing to put code on Polkadot, and so it's the governance that's going to decide who gets what. But yeah, again, like you have bounties, like if there is somebody who's making a lot of contribution to the community in terms of like art or code or these public libraries, wallets, so you can put the bounties out there and let the council decide who gets the tip. All right, so yeah, so how do you translate governance into like execution on chain? So you can think of Polkadot nodes, so they run the software as a WASM bytecode. What you can do is you can change the network parameters or even the relay chain code itself through on-chain governance and publish it onto the chain. Okay, so it's the people who decide what happens on the network, and the upgrade happens seamlessly. So the goals are these. So we want to, so this is the ideal set of like goals that we have, and we're slowly moving towards like, achieving all that. So no party should be privileged over another a priori, but again, yeah, so those who have lots of dots at the beginning have that, right? So all of this takes some time for the network to get matured, and we'll be working towards like achieving these goals with governance. All right, so let's talk about security. So why does a parachain have to join Polkadot? Okay, so you as a developer, why should you care about building a blockchain that will be plugged into Polkadot? So one of the main reasons is the security that Polkadot offers. So we are doing it using what's called a nominated proof of stake. So basically, you have a bunch of validator nodes that are going to add blocks onto the blockchain. And for them to be able to do that, they should be nominated by a lot of people. So right now, each validator, if they have to get to the active set, they should have like about 2 million dots, nominated to them. And for gaining such level of, trust, the validator has to put a lot of work, gain a lot of trust, and make sure the validator should also make sure that no mistakes happen and not to be malicious. Okay, so there are lots of penalties, what we call as slashing, that can happen, which have a very direct impact on the nominated tokens. So basically, Polkadot network itself is secured by the set of nominators who have these network utility tokens, which are dots that are nominated to the validators. So this ensures security from the economics. So basically, nothing is impossible, right? So people can break things. People want to do evil things. but there is a huge cost associated with it. And if you understand this closely, you'll see what kind of cost it takes to break the security that we have. All right, so self upgrades. So if there is a way to transform that into that by just porting some code, that would be awesome, right? So that's pretty much how Polkadot chain works. So if you look at the conventional blockchains, like the legacy blockchains, so you have a bunch of blocks that are building on top of each other. And then if the validators, split, or the miners split, and then they start to fork and build blocks on in a forked way, you end up with this forking issue. So that is not the case, like with Polkadot, where you can port the code that you want to into the relay chain and upgrade it like seamlessly. So this is like a forkless upgrade. And the whole mechanics of that is pretty good. So I'm available after this talk to clarify more about how we do that. But yeah, so I'm gonna summarize what I just talked about. Polkadot does interoperability, blockchains communicating with each other, pooled security. So we have this central relay chain that is going to secure all these individual blockchains. Heterogeneous chains. Okay, so the distributed apps that that you can develop on them, the opportunities are like boundless. I'm going to show you like the projects that are already underway in the ecosystem. And yeah, so it's thought through governance. So we have this governance module that itself can be changed by governance. Okay, so people can have these referendums. They have the capability of voting and changing things on chain. Okay, so talking about the architecture, I briefly mentioned about a parachain. So parachain is a chain that runs parallel to the relay chain. There is also something called as a parathread. So you need to understand something about how parachains go live on Polkadot. So parachains use a mechanism of slot auctions. So if a blockchain team wins a slot auction, then they have full access to the relay chain. It's almost like communicating with web sockets. Okay, so you establish the socket connection. You're free to communicate whatever you want with the other client or server that is out there, right? So you have a full throughput if you're a parachain. Whereas parathread, it has to do it like an RPC call, meaning you only contact the relay chain whenever you want, and you're going to put some price on it. Okay, so you have to auction for individual blocks rather than a 48-week connection to the relay chain. So parachain is what you need when you need access to the network whenever you want, and parathread whenever you want to communicate with the relay chain. You could use the parathread model. So both of them have their own costs involved. So I can say that parathread registration on Polkadot costs lesser than parachain. Okay, so I zoomed into the architecture that I've showed earlier. As you can see, there are a bunch of validators who are going to validate from the relay chain. They're going to validate the blocks for the parachains. So the parachains in themselves don't have to work much to create blocks. So it's the validators on the relay chain who are going to finalize the blocks for the parachains. We'll talk about what collators do. So collators are the full nodes that the parachain should have. The collators send the transactions metadata to the validators on the relay chain, and that gets finalized and it's stored on the relay chain, and then the block production can happen on the parachain. So yeah, you can also see bridges to the left. So they have a special slot called as Parachain bridge slot. There is a parathread slot where you have a bunch of blockchains that are competing against each other to put their block onto the relay chain. Yeah, so verification and finalization of blocks is performed by the validators on the relay chain. So right now there are 297 validators on Polkadot. So they're going to be randomly assigned to individual parachains. So they're going to do the work for them in ensuring security. So the work on XCMP is ongoing. So this is a short form for cross-chain message passing. So as the description suggests, you want to have like a mechanism where you can directly communicate with the other parachains that are there in Polkadot ecosystem. And why do you want to do that? So let's say I'm going to talk about a parachain that is currently doing an auction. It's called Kilt. They do identity service management. Okay, and you're a different parachain that's trying to loan some money or do distribution of assets. So it's a direct use case where you're going to leverage what the other parachain is providing, right? So you can use that service through direct message passing, and you can build your application knowing that you have access to that particular blockchain out there. So the beauty of this is this cross-chain messaging doesn't put your message on the relay chain. Okay, so Polkadot will not hold those messages. These are it's going to just have the hash, but the message itself, the contents, they're going to reach the parachain that is out there. But currently, what we have is cross-chain messaging light. Here we're going to put like the entire message on the relay chain as well. And yeah, so this is one of the features of Polkadot that has been having a lot of interest. Many people are having a lot of interest in this one. There is a talk about this during Sub-Zero. It's a conference hosted by Parity. The dates will be out soon. It'll be in October. There's going to be a talk exclusively on cross-chain messaging, if you're interested. All right, so I've talked about parachains and how do you become a parachain. So there's an interesting mechanism. So Polkadot follows the procedure of auctions. So the auctions work in a unique way. On Polkadot, we use something called as candle auction. So this used to happen a few centuries ago, where you light a candle, but you're not going to show that to the participants of the auction. So the candle is going to be so it'll be melting, and then at some point like it's going to go off. So the people who are doing the auction wouldn't know that. Okay, so and why is this important? So this is going to let people come up with like honest and genuine worth of what they're trying to put into the network, right? So instead of like nuking at the end of the auction, this is the end time, then people will jack up the price a lot. So instead of doing that, you're going to be honest from the beginning, and this is going to ensure that slot gets sold for a right kind of amount. So there's been research, like Web3 Foundation researchers are the ones who proposed this auction, and with whatever we saw on Kusama, we saw that this was a success. Yeah, so what happens here is if you want to become a parachain, you need to have a lot of network utility tokens, which are dots. You're going to bond them to be able to be plugged into the relay chain. Okay, so let's say you have 1 million dots, you plug them into the relay chain, bond them for the slot duration, do your work, and after the end of the slot, the slot expires, you get your tokens back. So the tokens are still yours. You're just going to bond them in there to do your work. So sometimes, like if you're a project and you don't have so much of capital to have so many tokens to be able to become a parachain, so then you can use what's called a crowd loan functionality. So these are happening, like they're starting tomorrow on Kusama. That's the second edition. So crowd loans are a way where the general users can lend their funds to you, meaning so they won't give them directly to you. So they are sent like trustlessly on the relay chain itself. So that way, if I'm like a evil actor, I will not be able to run away with all those tokens. Okay, so the crowd loans is native to the relay chain itself. So the tokens that you're giving to that parachain, so they're going to stay on the relay chain, and they'll be returned back to you once this slot expires. So I hope that I made sense with that. Yeah.
There's some exchanges, like for instance, Kraken and so forth, that seems to be facilitating this process.
Yeah.
Are you guys working together with them? Do you guys recommend working with them? Unless my understanding is that their business model is linked to, let's say, charging a portion of the rewards after the slot is won. What is your opinion on that?
Sure. So yeah, so many people are aware of the exchanges, right? So to begin with, there are plenty of blockchains out there. People just want to go to exchanges, get the tokens and do whatever you want with them. So yeah, like you mentioned, Kraken has its own business model. They're gonna so whenever you buy tokens on Kraken, so they're the ones who are going to manage what happens with them. And so I personally have done it directly through Polkadot.js, the website that showed initially. So it gives you an option to participate in crowd loans directly. Okay, so you'll be able to contribute to it on chain, like without any of these mediators. So you give it to that crowd loan module. It's going to sit on the relay chain for the slot duration. At the end of it, the tokens are going to come back to your address without any mediator. And based on the address through which you contributed to that crowd loan, the parachain is going to give the rewards for a corresponding address. So that way you won't have like any middleman who is like squeezing some rewards out of what you're doing. But this again is technical. Like people need to be aware of how to do this using like Polkadot.js. So yeah, so that's one of the barriers why people go for like easier options. When somebody is making your life easy, you tend to like give some money to do it anyways. So but by default, like Polkadot in itself is not working with any exchanges. Okay, so this is on chain. So the crowd loan functionality sits on chain. If you want to interact with the chain directly and participate in it, you can do it, and you can do it trustlessly. So you need not trust the parachain teams to return back your tokens at the end of the slot auction. And now you may ask again, like what's your incentive for doing this? So it depends on the parachain team, right? So they'll advertise like the reward that they're going to give to you. So you make a comparison. The reward, if I just stake these tokens, is like this much. If I give it to them and bond it for them, I'm going to miss out on the staking rewards. So what's the best option for me? So you make the calculated judgment and then decide to loan it for that parachain. And also this could be a parachain that is implementing something you really want, like you have a strong conviction to support that team. You should be able to contribute to them through this as well. Yeah, great question. Yeah, so one more thing. So a common misconception is that you must win a parachain slot to be able to build something on Polkadot. So I want to remove that misconception here right today. So this is true only for parachains and parathreads. So I talked about both of them. So parachains are plugged in to the relay chain for a fixed duration. Parathreads, they're also going to have access to the relay chain, but per block basis. So they're going to pay some price to contact with the relay chain. But yeah, so other projects can run on top of parachains, mostly as smart contracts. Okay, so you can still be part of Polkadot ecosystem. So try to find that layer 1 parachain that is going to let you build your own distributed app. Okay, so yeah, so as a developer, just keep this in mind. So you don't have to shoot for parachains or parathreads. So those are for a specific purpose. So if you are trying to build an application, you can try to look at the parachains that are already giving that functionality. How are we doing with time?
It's fine if you want to talk a little bit more, then we will propose the discussion group.
Yeah, that makes sense. So yeah, I'll try to wrap it up in like about 5 minutes. I'm going to give you a brief overview about how we do the consensus for the blockchain. So if you're someone who was interested in the theory that that we used in creating the blocks on Polkadot, so this is the slide for that. So finality, as the name suggests, is something that tells you that this block is final. Okay, so nobody can revert this block back into something else. So this is going to stay in blockchain like forever. So to achieve finality, so the classical blockchain model, like Nakamoto consensus, it's probabilistic, meaning, so the more blocks that get added on top of this block with the current transaction gives you more confidence that this is going to be final. So it's always a probability, and that's why you see even exchanges waiting for, like, let's say 20 blocks before like finalizing a certain transaction, right? So that's the classical model, but there is also a mechanism where you can immediately when a block is added, like that block is final. Okay, so that's something done in Tendermint. So if you're interested, look up like both of them and compare both of them. So, but that particular probable finality where you can directly say that this is final, it comes with a issue which is called a stalling, meaning block production can stop at times. So we don't want to run into that. So that's why Polkadot came up with this hybrid consensus model. So there are two individual and independent processes that are running, and the way the way it works is, so one of them, the block production is independent of finalization gadget. So validators are blindly and randomly assigned to create a block. So the blocks keep getting added to the chain, and there is a finality gadget that runs in parallel, deciding like what block should be final in all those blocks that are generated. So you can have forks at one end. Let me show this. Yeah, so you can have like a fork like this one. So this is the finalized blockchain so far, and if you have like two blocks generated in parallel, it is the finalization finality gadget that is going to decide which one should be in the chain, and it goes further. So I think this also shows up in the snapshot that I showed earlier. If you observe the Polkadot block production, so the finalized block is trailing by 3 blocks. So here you see like 065, and the best block is 068 at the end. So these are the blocks that are generated by the validators, and it's the finality gadget that is like finalizing blocks with a slight lag. Now, when the network runs into issues, you might see like a disparity between both of them. Okay, so validators are generating blocks, but the finality might get stalled for some reason, and both of them are going to lag. But yeah, so just to give you an overview of that. Okay, so we're nearing the end of the talk. Yeah, so what next? So September 1st, which is tomorrow. So that's the first, auction that's going to happen in the second phase. So there have already been like 5 auctions that were finished, like in the month of June, July. But yeah, so tomorrow is the beginning of the first slot auction right now. So and then, so every week we have like a new auction, and these were the parachains that went live on Kusama. And of those, like Karura is doing like DeFi stuff. Yeah, so Moon River is doing like EVM and Ethereum bridge stuff with smart contracts. So they went live like a couple of days ago, and yeah. So if you're interested, like check out like what they're gonna do, and also like this is happening right now. So if you go to Polkadot.js and look at the crowd loans, all of these projects have opened up for crowd loans, and then there are contributions that are happening at this moment. But yeah, so feel free to check out like these projects that are upcoming on Kusama. And every project that you see on Kusama has like a corresponding project on Polkadot. Okay, so the names might be different, but the functionality is going to be the same. People are going to test their functionality on Kusama, make sure that it works properly, and then they are going to update it on Polkadot. So that's the flow of the developers. So yeah, I just want to say that in all this timeline, so we are in August. So basically, once the code is audited on Polkadot and things work well on Kusama for parachains, Polkadot will also open up for like parachain auctions. So if you're interested, so there's a report that has been published that talks about network stability on Kusama with parachains, right? So there are 6 parachains that are live on Kusama right now, which are doing their own thing. So that created certain instabilities in the network. So all of them were examined and reported in here. But yeah, so the future upgrades, like I mentioned, cross-chain messaging plays the central part in the whole Polkadot ecosystem. So we want to have that fully functional, and the launch of like parathreads. So parathreads are not live yet, but yeah, so they're one of the key things that we are looking to launch soon. Yeah, that's it. And I'm open for questions right now.
Yeah. So I have a question with the option for individual contributor or was a very, very small team. For example, if I don't want only to buy Polkadot and wait when price will rise, but I still don't have due to some limitation cannot run Parachain or have a team who creates some project. So what is it any middle option running own nominator, for example, or something like this? What would contribute into Polkadot?
Sure. So you say you already have some tokens, and then you want to do something with them right now. So the very first thing that you can do is be a nominator. Like you're going to give that amount of dots. You nominate them to a trusted set of validators. So they're going to do their job, and if they do their job very well, then they share part of the reward with you, right? So that's one thing you can directly do right now. But again, I need to back down a little bit, because on directly on the chain right now, we have like few minimum requirements to be a nominator. So on Polkadot right now, it's like 80 dots, and on Kusama, it's like much lower. So, and that is not something to keep the community members like away. It's due to an engineering reason. So right now, the nominated proof of stake algorithm can support unlimited number of nominators, but when it comes to implementation, we are restricted by the hardware that we're running on. And the way we have written the program, which matches the nominator, the nomination amount, maximizes the amount of nomination each validator gets. So it becomes a graph problem that needs to be solved during the runtime, which is going to be one of the big challenges that Parity is working on right now. So that's one quick way for you to do it. And you can also run a validator node if you'd like to. But the thing is, you have to build that trust of getting so many nominations, right? So we run a program called as 1000 Validators program, where you show that there's an application procedure for that. You show that you can run a node successfully. Then I think it's the Treasury or the Web3 Foundation that funds the 1000 validators. Okay, yeah. So basically, you don't have to look for nominations. So you're going to have that nomination from us, and you can get that experience of being a validator in a real world situation on Kusama, build up a profile, and then go to Polkadot and earn rewards in a higher way. Yeah.
Maybe following up on that, my understanding was that I could also loan my DOT for the auctions to the project.
Yeah.
What I didn't understand is if the dots are bonded. My understanding was that they're bonded for 2 years. In most staking mechanisms, I can unstake. Sometimes I have a penalty, but I can unstake. My understanding was that I cannot unbond during those 2 years.
Sure.
Now, there might be all kinds of things happening to my wallet or anything in those 2 years. Do you have mechanisms to actually make sure that you don't have to give it back in 2 years' time to the same address that actually donated, for example?
Yeah, so it's all written on chain. So once you contribute to a crowd loan using an address, an account, the dots are bonded. And after 2 years, so even if you don't maintain the minimum balance that is required in account, usually I think it's 1 dot for Polkadot accounts, your account will get reaped, and whatever balance you have below 1 is going to the treasury, I suppose. Even if you have 0 dots on your account, after 2 years, if you look at your account again, so you'll have all those deposited right away.
Okay.
And that is done on the relay chain. Nobody controls it. It is automatic. So they come back to your account.
But it will have to be the same address where I need to have all this private key credentials, etc.
Yeah, you need to definitely store the private key of that and do it. Yeah. Yeah.
In your presentation, do you mind coming back to the graph where we could see the number of transactions per segment?
Sure.
Yeah, exactly. So here we have Polkadot, then Ethereum, and we are a bit. Can you consider the layer 2 protocols also here? Because we are comparing Ethereum and Polkadot here with such a large number for Polkadot. But are we not? Are we really comparing the same things here?
Yeah. So I thought about it when I'm reusing this slide as well. So we are definitely comparing different things. So people, when we talk about the speed of the blockchain, so they asked about the transaction per second. So it is known that Bitcoin is slow, and that's why people have this argument, I can't pay for a coffee using my Bitcoin, right? So the point being, Polkadot having such a larger capacity for transactions happening across different parachains, it is possible for you to build applications that can make use of that parallel architecture and perform so many transactions per second. So think of it this way. Let's say you are some project or some organization that's going to have to do plenty of transactions. So you can get multiple Parachain slots, I guess, and have each of them like take care of one set of transactions and put them all on the relay chain and achieve this level of throughput through this particular architecture, which is not possible if you're trying to do with Ethereum. So Ethereum in itself is going to be congested. It's like a single highway, where if you're trying to run a lot of them in parallel, you're going to have to pay like more, or you won't have that much network throughput to put so many transactions in a specific amount of time. So it's the parallel architecture of Polkadot, having so many parachains which are running independently, communicating with each other and with the relay chain that lets it have this level of throughput. Yeah, but yeah, again, like the comparison is sort of not fair because each one is doing like a different thing. For instance, like Visa does transactions with like the credit cards. Those are like just financial transactions, just like Bitcoin.
And if we add the layer 2 protocols, how much is it for Ethereum?
I'm pretty sure it'll be higher than this one.
But how? Yeah. Okay.
Just to give a discussion. Any other questions? Zoom, yeah. I probably can stop share in the chat. All right, so I'm gonna go.
Yeah, implementation of mobile.
Okay, so there is a plan to so Polkadot.js in itself is for developers. It's not for like end users, like general users. Do not have like good experience like using Polkadot.js. The reason for that is all of that is meant for developers who are developing on the ecosystem. I'm pretty sure there are many wallets that are out there that have put proposals to the treasury, as well as like grants team at Web3 Foundation is like funding some projects. So pretty soon you're going to see like many products that are out there that will make your life easy, especially if you just want to like transfer tokens, like balance transfer, staking. You need not like go to Polkadot.js to do it. So you should be able to use these simple applications for that. All right, so I hope that answered that question. What's the state of wallets in the ecosystem? Yep, this is one of the questions we get, and I think it was in the yesterday's Polkadot water cooler chat that Gavin Wood mentioned something about like wallets as well. So the development is in progress. And yep, so are they wallets custodial and non-custodial? Okay, so most of the wallets in that you see on our wiki, so they're all non-custodial. So nobody owns anything about your account. So all the information stays with you. So on bridge chains, what kind of dApps are built? Example on Moonbeam River. Yeah, so Moonbeam, Moonriver, anything to do with like smart contracts, you can implement it on that. So they, if I'm correct, they're offering a functionality where if you have code written for Ethereum, so you can directly port it to Moonriver right now and run it on Kusama, which is going to run for you like economically when you compare with the price of running the same smart contract on Ethereum. But yeah, so I hope this gave you like enough pointers to discuss in the breakout sessions. Happy to take more questions. I'll also ask the organizers to send out this presentation for everybody. That way you can access all the links that I provided in there. Thank you very much.
So yeah, I think we can, the idea is of the whole concept is that we always have like an interesting presentation in the beginning, And then we actually come, like, if you have a project idea or you have a specific topic that you want to discuss, then we form like working groups, discussion groups, and have breakout rooms for that. And of course, now it's the first meeting of this kind, so we're probably not going to have 10 or 20 groups, but the idea is that after a few meetings, we have teams working on different topics together and meeting on a regular basis and getting the support that they need. So I'd ask you to join the Discord channel we have for that. And we will create, for the working groups, we will create subgroups where you can then get feedback on your ideas, etc. Also from the Polkadot guys. And I think today probably most interesting will be this discussion group, maybe a few more questions that we discuss here in the main channel. But if you have, for example, ideas, we were talking about the hackathon. If you want to discuss your ideas about the hackathon, then you can go into that breakout room. We will post always the Zoom and the Discord link to that. And then you can join that and also write about it in the next weeks. And we will meet on a monthly basis like this on site and online. So yeah, I think it was already a lot of people here, 40 people online, and then here also about 20. So it's, I think, a good start. And here, is there someone here on site who has an idea or a project that you want to work on or have people join? Do you want anyone to quickly present an idea? Yeah? Yeah? And you, like two,
They can
right?
come here, right? Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
Yeah, come
Yeah.
over here.
Hello, everyone. I'm Fernando, co-founder of Curio, and our CTO is here in the back as well. Just wanted to introduce briefly an idea we've been working on. It refers to NFTs, but not the digital ones, but the real world assets. So NFTs that represent real world assets. And there's actually already a live application. I just wanted to walk you briefly through it so that you get a feeling about how it looks. And I mean, we believe crypto can mature if we bring real world assets to the blockchain. So the challenge we have is how to grab these real world assets in a secure and safe way, intuitive with UX and so forth. So we started in Ethereum with Ethereum, and our journey took us through a very interesting path where we became the first company to tokenize a real world asset. We actually picked a Ferrari. It's not a normal car, it was a collectible. So turns out collectibles can benefit from NFTs because they're very expensive and only the very wealthy effectively purchase them. However, they seem to have developed positively over time, so they kind of invest on those cars or paintings and so forth. So then the question was, what if we could just turn them into NFTs and maybe fractionalize them and so forth, and therefore make them available. So we're now looking into Polkadot as well as a potential Parachain slot because of the safety, security, and speed that eventually this collaboration would look like. And this is an example of the real world assets that are actually available today. So this is live. Let me just show you briefly. Maybe Vladimir, you want to share a little bit more about how we want to do these specific breaches?
No, you just can show this is all the IPPS, decentralized, and so on.
Right. So I think the Ferrari I was talking about is not right now for sale.
Can you share the screen with the Zoom?
Let's see. Okay.
Quickly. On the Zoom down there.
Right. So let me just share with you guys the screen for those who are looking at.
And not the whiteboard, just the desktop.
Yeah, the Google Chrome.
Okay, share. You should be able to see it. So basically, what you see here are collectibles. wine, fine watches, fine cars, fine sneakers. And there's actually more real world assets coming up in the near future. So basically, one of the first assets we tokenized was a Ferrari. I was telling you now, for those who are watching this video online, this is the Ferrari, this is the NFT, how it looks like. What's quite unique about this NFT is that it has a real-time valuation. So there's lots of logic behind the scenes. This NFT is connected with Chainlink Oracle. We makes it particularly unique because for the first time, you have a real-time value to a real-world asset, and therefore you can tap into liquidity. So you don't need to sell the Ferrari tokens in order to get access to liquidity. You can actually pledge them, similar to MakerDAO, into a vault and mint a stable coin. So this ecosystem is what we're trying to bring to Polkadot via a Parachain slot. And yeah, I mean, we're facing some challenges. One of the first challenges has been, is Parachain, is Polkadot ready for real world assets? From a security perspective, from an infrastructure perspective. And the second challenge that remains open is, what about the legal part? So of course, we've been it took us about 1 year working with regulators to convey the idea of how an Ethereum wallet can represent, or a smart contract can represent a legal binding agreement, on how specific tokens can represent a participation in that asset and so forth. So what about the legal, right? So our team will be happy to open source some of this work. And we actually got a grant by NEAR to do so on their ecosystem. And we've been trying to approach the Web3 Foundation to do something similar, a collaboration in that space. We see lots of opportunities on real world assets. And yeah, thank you for today's discussion. Maybe you can chat more about where we are in the infrastructure side for this kind of projects.
Sure, cool. Yeah, so this is an example there. We can create a sub-channel for that, so everybody who's interested to talk about that and how this could be implemented is welcome to join that. Anyone else? Yeah. So we have another idea for a working group. Yeah.
Hey, can you hear me? I have a question.
I'm Alan, the co-founder and CTO of Integrity. We are currently running a crowd loan if you're interested. Sorry for the pitch. But the topic, well, as this is a developer event, is we are actually building an infrastructure which allows you to execute your Substrate palettes confidentially inside a trusted execution environment on a second layer. So it's about privacy and scalability at the same time. And I'd be very interested to learn from you what you are trying to build, where your privacy issues are in your use case, and how we could maybe help you with that. So it's no obligation to do that on our Parachain, which we hopefully will have, because the entire framework is open source, has been developed with a Web3 grant, is Apache 2, so no lock-in. So that's in all brevity, just if you're interested in online privacy.
Okay, so how should we call the group?
Well, why not trusted execution for privacy?
Good. Trusted execution.
For privacy and scalability. It's also about scalability.
Can you tell me again what the Substrate palette is?
Yes, so in the talk we heard before, the palette is that Lego brick that you build your blockchain business logic with. So if you build a Substrate blockchain and you're not working with smart contracts, so if you're really building your own blockchain, then this blockchain will consist of palettes. One palette doing the ledger of the token balances, one palette maybe doing something with NFTs, whatever. And these palettes are the modules that are kind of standardized how they can interoperate inside a Substrate runtime, which is the base technology that Polkadot builds on. And what we offer is we have built a framework which is compatible to that, to Substrate runtimes. So whatever you develop for Polkadot, for a Parachain, for your standalone chain, you can reuse that code one-to-one and execute that in Intel SGX, which is the technology we're using.
So we don't need to build on your Parachain and stuff.
You don't necessarily have to. It's a framework that you can use if you want to use trusted execution. And we offer you the Parachain as a place to deploy your use cases on, because the problem is also it is very capital intensive to get the Parachain slot. We are right now raising, and it's not easy. So we think actually our sidechains could be like a nested relay chain, so that even smaller projects can deploy their stuff as a sidechain on our Parachain and get confidentiality for free. Well, for free. I mean, what you know about trusted execution environments, you have to trust the hardware manufacturer. That's the deal you're going on. So that's what you'll have to accept.
It's a perfect intro for the next question. Can you support anything else than Intel?
Currently, Intel SGX is the only technology which allows remote attestation, which is important for us because our Parachain is a registry of remotely attested trusted execution environments. Because otherwise, if you're talking to a node, how can you know that that node is a trusted execution environment? So again, Intel SGX offers you the remote attestation service. So they will certify that this is a genuine execution environment, and our Parachain can check that certificate and will only allow genuine TEs in its registry. So you can look up on our Parachain who runs genuine devices and runs the correct software. So that's the guarantees that you get. We are looking into ARM Trust Zone as well. We are looking into open source alternatives like Keystone, but they are not at the level that we need. So if we can raise enough money, we will take care of that as well. But that's not in the near future.
Okay, cool. Yeah, we will create a subgroup for that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay. Anyone else with a discussion topic? Also, of course, you can propose them here in the Zoom chat and also in the Discord group. I think what we can do now is that everyone who has like a subgroup, you can go in the different areas. I'll show you, and then people can join from if they want to. And here we can continue the main discussion. I think maybe with a few questions to you and just continue the dialogue here.
Sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool. Yeah. So if you have any questions, we can continue here. And Fernando, everyone who has a discussion group, maybe I'll show you where you can then open the channels.
Those who are interested for real world assets, reach out to me. That's one of them. One discussion group. Real world assets, it's like
Real estate, Ferrari, shoes, things.
I think I see somebody raising the hand.
Yeah. Can you can that person unmute? So you can also propose ideas. Just unmute yourself
Yeah, Urban, can you unmute?
I think everyone can unmute themselves if they have a question or an idea.
Yeah.
No?
Yeah, so there's you can unmute yourself if you want to.
Alright.
I've also created 4 breakout rooms.
Okay, wait a second. I have to turn on the sound. Okay. Can we, Urban?
Yes.
Okay. Can you repeat?
So 4 breakout rooms have been created, and anybody who wants to speak up can unmute themselves. So there's no ban on that or anything like that.
Okay. Good. And we find the groups through the Discord channel, or?
No, on the Zoom.
Okay.
Oh.
I hear the breakout rooms. Okay. So, which room is which? That's just for the group numbers, right? Okay.
Yes, exactly.
So everyone interested in the hackathon can go to room 1. Everyone interested in the like NFT platform in Curio, right? Is group 2, and group 3 is trusted execution for privacy. And what is group 4? That's not defined yet, I think. And what I would ask the group initiators to do is to open your laptop and join the group, and then I'll provide a room for you to be there, and then everyone can join these groups. So also everyone online, you can continue to ask questions, like open questions, and you can stay also in the main channel here.
I have a technical question.
Yes.
So in the Parachain, you can still have your own consensus mechanism, or you can have a Parachain that doesn't rely on the.
Hello, I have a question.
Is that a question?
Can you explain a bit about XCMP, the cross-chain message passing protocol?
Yeah, I have the question. Yeah.
Okay. Yes.
Let me share my screen. Just give me a second.
Yes. You have to go on Zoom and then there and then. So we have 2 people in the room 1, and Luca is in room 2, right?
Yeah, sure. So pretty much like all the topics, can you hear me? Yeah, pretty much all the topics that I've talked about, they're all referenced in the wiki. So yeah, so XCMP is something that's in development. It's gonna let like these parachains like talk to each other. So that depends on a lot of things. So first of all, every parachain that gets plugged into the relay chain, it has a certain ID. And yeah, so these points like right here will give you an overview of what it is about. Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, cool. Cool, got it. I can learn from here.
Yeah, exactly. So just take a look at that, and also try to keep in touch with the Sub-Zero conference. So that's when you'll get the first-hand explanation from researchers about what XCMP is meant to do. Okay.
Sure, great, man. Thanks.
Yeah, go ahead. What's the question? You're actually muted.
So there is one question, can I ask also?
Yeah, go ahead.
Okay, so the question is about Cosmos network, which is kind of a little bit similar to Polkadot.
Yeah.
What is like, what feature of the Cosmos network would you like to have in Polkadot? I mean, it's kind of, are you, or do you have some arguments why Polkadot should be like, why sharded should be in Polkadot?
Sure. So I've joined like Web3 Foundation like 2 months back. So I've only been following the space of like Ethereum and Polkadot. Before I entered, I know Cosmos does something similar, like Internet of Blockchains. So they've deployed something called a Stargate, and they're doing work. But I do not have like a granular comparison that you can do with like what Polkadot does with Cosmos, unfortunately. Yeah. Yeah.
Sometimes when we see the distribution of token, again, informatic, I mean, we know that Binance, for instance, owns a lot of tokens.
Sure.
Here, before you show democracy, do you make sure that some people only can own, let's say, 5% of the token max, so that we have some democracy, or?
No, so there's nothing that restricts like people holding certain. How can it be even enforced on like wallets that can be created?
Technologies for doing that. I mean, there is entry, I think, a project which tries to make identities per wallet in order not to have 20, the same person owning these wallets. Do you do that, or are you planning to do that?
So one thing, like Polkadot does support like on-chain identity. Like you can turn yourself in, like you can say I'm this entity or this individual, have like a trusted identity on the network. It is administered through like W3F registrar, and that is mainly for this, like being a validator or other things where you have to establish trust with the community. But yeah, like you mentioned, how about like people having like these different wallets, like I think there are like applications being built to be able to do that, but Polkadot in itself does not have anything like that. So on the relay chain, you're free to create your account, do the balance transfer. There's nothing stopping you from doing it. And you can also see that entities and organizations like these, they run their own validator nodes because they have so many tokens. So they pretty much like run a validator node, stake to that one, and they're not even like open for nominations. So they won't accept nominations from outsiders. So whatever block reward they get out of like creating the block, so they will get the entire thing. And yeah, so that's out there. And how do we handle that in terms of governance? Again, like it boils down to all the objectives that we have. So the tokens are already out there, like people own it, and so you somehow have to find. As I can see, it's already like distributed. When I see like referendums and the votings that happen, you can clearly see there are a few heavyweights that are defining like what the vote outcome should be. But yeah, so as the governance goes further and further, I hope this conviction voting kicks in, where you can actually put a lot of weight, even though you have less number of tokens. The more you're willing to bond them, the more weightage you get for that vote, and things can be changed. Just like democracy, which takes time to like take things into shape. Like we hope that eventually will converge to those principles. But again, like right now, Parity is developing a lot of code for Polkadot. So they are part of like the technical community and council. So you'll see their presence. But again, like things are going to go further and further. Once Polkadot is up there is no need to like upgrade it like often. So right now you see an upgrade like every month or every 2 weeks, because things are changing a lot. But once we become like a stable blockchain, then things won't need like updating so frequently, and then things will be much more out in the open. Like I said, like we're just a new project. Like last year was when we launched, and Kusama went live. There are like parachains going in there, and slowly we're going to move to Polkadot parachains. Yep. Yeah, that's a good question.
Maybe following up on that, is it publicly disclosed, the holdings of the treasury and of Parity, etc.? They may have changed from the initial tokenomics.
Yeah. So Web3 has like a registered identity on. I'm sure even like people are like monitoring all those and like saying, why did Web3 unborn these tokens now? Or so a lot of speculation that comes with all that. So right now all those accounts, so they're public, and I think they are mainly out there to show like where that stake is coming from, especially when you're like nominating a few validators. So even the exchanges have their identities up there, so you'll be able to see all of them. I mean, I can quickly open the Polkadot.js. You'll be able to see like everything on it, like right off the bat. So I'll probably share it for people viewing this as well. Green. Oh, yep. All right. So yeah, the first two validators you see right there are Binance. I hope you can see. So these validators, they haven't registered like their identity. Let me go to the. You can. Yeah. So if you see, if the commission is like 100%, that means that they're the ones who are getting all the block reward. So you can see these validators. So few of them, only take a percentage of the block reward. So when you're nominating, you take into consideration like all these factors, and give your nomination to the certain validator. Yeah, and as you can see, there's so many nodes for Sloop Capital right there, all with the identity. Yeah, so this will give you a good idea of where the tokens are, or who's vested into the ecosystem. But we hope as we grow, more and more people are going to come into the ecosystem. They get a part of like the stake, and they have a say in what's going to happen. But for right now, like this is what you have.
Are there some quality type information about the validators if I want to choose?
Yes.
Who's to stake to next to the commission? Do I see uptime or?
Yeah. So you have an option. So go to this targets, tab right there. It's going to give you a lot of metrics. Like it even gives you like the expected return based on like the history of what they've been like giving. This fetches a lot of data, so it's going to take a while. Yeah, but targets is the tab where you'd like to go to check and compare the validators. And if you know of a specific validator, let's say you want to know more about this particular validator, you could go to the validator stats and then plug in like their address, their account address, and it's going to give you like all these statistics for that particular validator. But here, by default, it's sorted based on the return that you might get if you validate that particular validator. But again, you have to be mindful that this may not always be the case. Okay, so you also need to take a look at the history, their slashing history, and how much stake they're putting on their own. So for instance, like this validator has like 1,000 dots at stake. So it is very unlikely they're going to do something malicious and get slashed, right? So they're going to lose like their entire dot as well. But there are a few who have only 1 dot. They have nothing to lose if they really want to be evil. But again, like if you know that person and if you're willing to put your trust on that validator, you can also do that.
Similar to other chains, yeah.
Exactly.
Just wasn't sure if there's such information available.
Oh, all of that is available. You can query that on chain. And I'm pretty sure like there are a few external websites as well that scan like the whole blockchain and give you like better validator options. And so there are community funded like wallets and others. They give you like recommendation as to who to validate, nominate.
Okay. Any other questions?
I think I skipped your question. So can parachains have like their own?
The parachains can have their own consensus, or is it all based on relay chains consensus?
So parachains have entities called as like collators. So these collators are the ones who pick up like all the transactions that are happening. They package it and then they give that state transition thing to the relay chain validator. So they're going to validate and then let that block, be finalized on like the parachain. So the block data is going to be there. So if you're building on Substrate, forget about like Polkadot. If you're building your own like Substrate based chain, so you have a bunch of like consensus palettes to choose from.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I saw. There was a frame something.
Exactly, like the frame thing.
Also,
yep.
These like ramtowns there and variables there. Well.
Yep, and you can go inside those palettes, tweak the code the way you want to, and create your own consensus mechanism. But one good thing about being a parachain is you don't have to worry about all that, right? So you can just focus on your application logic. So for instance, they are doing something with like asset matching. So just focus on that, build like a palette for that, and then plug it into Polkadot and let it do that work.
So the palettes for consensus will be if you deploy it.
Yeah, like an independent individual. Yeah, sure. You'd like to do your own thing. Yeah. And also I want to show something. That rang a bell when they mentioned about like having real world assets. So it's actually running for a crowd loan right now. So its name is like Altair on Kusama, but Centrifuge is the project. They do something similar to the idea that was mentioned earlier. So but pretty much they do it in such a way that you can actually get loans for buying like real world assets and somehow like link this to the chain itself, which is kind of interesting. Yeah, I would definitely like share this with that group. Like if you're interested, check Centrifuge.
But if I would want to use Polkadot, like I want to use Ethereum, if I just want to deploy a smart contract, where would I do that now? Just
So you would do it on, you would do it on parachains that will let you, do the smart contracts.
Yeah.
So as I mentioned, like the object of Polkadot itself is different. It's going to be the layer 0 chain that will facilitate like the chains that might want to let you do smart contracts. There is also this thing about like crowd loans. So a lot of people who want to like bootstrap their project on Polkadot ecosystem, they go for crowd loans initially. So the advantages are twofold. One is you get the capital from the crowd, and right off the bat you get like a community that's going to support you, right? So even if you're like distributing your rewards, you have this decentralized, diverse community to begin with. So you may not have it if you're funding everything by yourself, if that makes sense. So having like people contribute to your project, having like a parachain on Polkadot ecosystem is gonna help you like build community as well as get that capital to begin your project.
And for how long do you get the Parachain slot?
So on Kusama, it's about like 48 weeks. On Polkadot, it's going to be like longer, like because everything on Kusama is like fast, and Polkadot it's like
it's still long. I thought it was much shorter. But,
yeah. Yeah.
On one of your slides, it was like a detailed network architecture.
Yeah.
It looks somehow that the validators are responsible for validating transactions between a specific parachain and the relay chain.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
And do they choose which one they validate, or it's just random?
Yeah. So if they get to choose, then again the security is going to be at risk, right? So a bunch of validators can decide to like destroy a certain kind of parachain if they like to. So that's why the validator assignment is very random. So even that algorithm is there in Wiki if you'd like to like refer to it. So the validators, first of all, the validators, if they have to get to the active set, they should have like so many like nominations to be able to become a validator on Polkadot chain. And after that, they have no control or on which parachain they're going to validate. So typically you'll see around like 3 or 5 validators being assigned to an individual parachain to create blocks.
How long is the assignment? Just for one block or
yes,
a number of blocks?
That I'll have to look into it, but typically it should be for. So we have something called as an epoch and an era. So things change after the end of epoch. But that's a good question. I have to look into the documentation to see if they get assigned only for a single block, which would be very tedious if you would ask me. So I think it should be. Yeah, I'm not sure if Sacha, you're here. The question is, how long does the validator stay with a certain parachain and build blocks for them? So if you're there, just type out the answer in the chat. Oh, he's in the breakout. Okay.
I can look it up. It's not important. Just
Yeah, definitely. I think lot of work is happening at a very fast pace. So even we being in like Web3 Foundation, we have to get onto these steering calls that happen between like Parity and Polkadot teams and then get to know like what's happening. So Web3 in itself is funding a lot of other projects too. The Web3 Foundation funds a lot of projects through like grants. Polkadot and Kusama are like the flagship projects. That's one thing. But again, like we oversee a lot of other projects and their development.
Okay, yeah. So who would want to discuss on the hackathon or any other breakout rooms? So we have I think 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 people discussing the ENCODE hackathon topics. And Fernando, if someone wants to discuss his project and how that could work with Polkadot, if some of you have ideas, maybe you can also join that topic.
Sure. Well, we have the Parachain for line.
Okay, and then the other topic would be in the meeting room over there about trusted execution for privacy. So I think it would make sense to just go in these groups now, talk a little bit about these topics, and then maybe 20 minutes we meet again and have the final chat, and then yeah. Okay.
Hello, everyone. Can you hear me?
Then you have to join with your
Okay, so welcome to the workshop Real World Assets to Real. We're here streaming out of Trust Square. And I will be very interested to learn if you can hear us. Someone's raising their hand. Oh, got it. All right, John.